George gives us a classic history for antisocial personality disorder, one of the most severe and disturbing personality disorders. His problems began at an early age, and they affect not only him, but almost everyone around him.
Can you tell me a little bit about what's happened for you to come into the hospital this time?
Yeah, this is my first time coming to the hospital or a treatment center, period. And I got to the point, you know, I was selling drugs out on the street, dealing with a lot of people, crazy people and everything, which, you know, because they had a sickness. But I didn't know I had a sickness because I was always, you know, distributing it to them. And I just got to a point where I had just, my mind just got so bad and everything. I couldn't nobody tell me nothing. And I ain't care about nobody. I ain't care about myself. I ain't care about my mother, my father, my kids, nothing. So it was like, it got so bad where I had to put a gun up to my father's head and then put my hands out on my mother's face, calling her all out her name. And it was like I ain't, you know, anybody could have took me out. And if they would have shot me or killed me, I wouldn't have cared.
When you were telling me when you were younger, under 15, you had all those fights, you ever have a fight with a weapon? That you were carrying a gun or a knife?
A knife?
A knife.
Yeah.
That was when you were under 15?
Yeah, that's when I was little. I had, well, my mother, since she been working the course, that gave me a break on the case like that. But I ain't got caught with 13-inch switchblades, throwing knives and everything. I had caught a lot of different things like that.
How old were you when that happened?
Like 11 to 12 years old. Used to throw bricks at people and bust their heads, hit them with bottles and everything. I ain't care. You know, whatever it took to beat them, that's what I did.
Now, when you were doing that, were you really trying to hurt him?
Yeah, I was trying to hurt him. Because, like I said, you know, I didn't have no feelings for nobody. But I felt like killing somebody, before I came in this hospital, but I felt like killing somebody, I didn't care about it.
When you were younger, less than 15, did you ever destroy property?
I used to see the bus drivers coming down Grand Avenue and opening once they open the bus door, throw bricks at them and everything, then run.
How old were you when this happened?
10 and 11 years old. You know, I was right down the street from the house, so I ain't had that far to run. You know, one time I took a paper machine. Don't you know that they had the papers in? I took it and dragged it in the boys' club, busted it open, took the money out.
Out of the machine?
Yeah. You know how you break the machine, that it has a top? I broke the top off and took the money out of the machine.
Was that something you do a lot when you were younger too, lying? Lying to people?
Yeah. Lying to get out of a whooping.
Okay, how about at school? Lying at school? And stuff like that?
I mean, I was lying daily at school because, you know, I go back to school, why wasn't you at home? I mean, why wasn't you at school? I was sick. Go home, my mom was like, was you at school today? Yes, ma'am, I was at school. No, and I wasn't even at school. I was at home on the telephone watching TV, legs kicked up and everything.
Now, how about fires? I know I asked you that question.
Yeah, I had I ain't do no major fires like burning buildings up and nothing, but I ain't tell you the other day, you know, I used to set trash cans on fire, right?
Now, were you doing that to keep warm, or?
No, doing that just to see some fire, just for the hell of it.
So if it was important, valuable stuff in there, you didn't care? No.
I used to steal from my daddy too, like his knives and stuff. My mother has a comic book collection, and you know, from when they very first started making comic books, when I was in school. I mean, when my mother and them didn't get no money, I used to take our comic books to school and sell our comic books. I mean, comic books that was valuable, real valuable. I used to sell them just for nothing. But she got them back though. But you know, I ain't as I was. You know, I didn't.
How about torturing animals or doing things to animals?
I ain't never abused no animals because, you know, I always did love animals because we always had animals. We always had pets, cats and dogs and everything, so I ain't, and I used to have a rabbit, you know, I love animals. I wouldn't do nothing to no animal, but I do something to a person. I have hatred inside me. I don't care how much I beat somebody, I still don't get enough anger out because I still, it seems like the more I hit somebody, the more anger I get inside me.
How much anger do you think you got inside you? What could you do? If you could just do whatever you want, how much anger would come out?
All right, put it like this. The other day, okay, before you came and talked to me, I was laying in my bed, and a guy that sleeps next to me, he just was talking to me, and I got pissed off and told him don't say nothing else to me. So I had jumped up out the bed. Now, this is in the hospital. Jumped up out the bed, and he jumped up. And I just slammed him on his bed and started choking him, you know, and didn't want to let go. I mean, you know, it was like I was just looking at his face and just choking him. And when so then some nurses came there, gave me some medicine, calmed me down, right? But before the medicine calmed me down, he said something else to me. I hit him. You know, then you know, the medicine finally calmed me down a little bit.
When was the first time that you really started using drugs?
I used drugs when I was praying. Ooh, let me see. I probably about 9, 10 years old.
What kind of drug?
Smoked marijuana. And then, no, that's the first time I used a drug that I smoked, but alcohol is a drug too. First time I drank some alcohol, I think I was probably about 3 years old. My mother, she used to drink peppermint schnapps. This was, you know, now this was like almost 24 years ago. And I took a bottle of her peppermint schnapps and drunk it. I hid in the closet and drunk it. I was sick. My mother told me I was sick for like 4 or 5 days.
How old were you when you first started using it, though, to get drunk or to get high, using drugs?
First started, I was smoking marijuana when I was about like 10, 11 years old, 9, 10, something like that. Smoking marijuana in school, you know how everybody wants to be grown.
Have you ever forced a woman to have sex?
No, see, I have sisters, and I respect them. I respect all females. I wouldn't put myself in no category to. I know people that did it though, and I wanted to kill them. You know, because I feel like a man doesn't have to do that. You know.
The kind of work that you've done. You mentioned that at one point you were selling drugs. Is that the main kind of work that you've done before? Selling drugs.
Yeah.
Most of the things most of the jobs that you've done, have they been things that weren't legal?
Yeah, I had a company though. I actually owned my own company though. I had a construction company, and you know it was an up and down thing. You know, the weather was bad, you couldn't do it. I actually opened that company up because I got the skills and the trades from Job Corps. So I had opened that company up, and I had got locked up. You know, I got locked up by the state. So when I got locked up by the state, I was just.
No, you mean you were in prison?
Yeah.
Prison. What was that about?
I assaulted a woman, you know, because she got up in my face and she acted like she was finna hit me. She was talking, but she was arguing with me, and next thing I know, I just smacked her. I broke her nose. I had so much anger and stuff in me. It was just, I just was like a bomb. You know, you see a bomb, and it's just ticking. It's just a matter of seconds for this bomb blows up, and you trying to get out of there. And the way I'm going, that bomb's gonna blow up in me. I won't be able to get away from it. And then
What's gonna happen, you think, when that bomb's gonna blow up?
It's gonna be a lot of people hurt. If not a lot of people dead. You know, I might be one of the persons that's lying in my grave or something, but you know, I ain't gonna go out. Hey, I'm not going out without taking somebody with me.
Has it ever happened that you've actually shot or killed someone?
Yeah, I don't know if I killed them. No, I shot a lot of people.
A lot of people, more than one.
Oh yeah, I was staying on the south side, and a guy stole my car, and I knew who it was who stole it. Then he came down the street, and I had a sawed-off 410, and I shot him with that 410.
Shotgun?
Yeah, I shot him. Then this is the same week, a lady tried to set me up with the police. She was working for the police, and you know, she came there with marked money, and I stayed on the second floor. I had threw her off the second floor, broke all her ribs. But you know, I've been doing a lot better though. You know, because I respect everybody up here, because everybody's trying to work with me. They could have been like a lot of these hospitals. You don't have insurance? Fuck you. You gone. We cannot help you. Okay? But these staff up here, you know I didn't hurt a lot of them because I didn't cuss them out, threaten them. But you know, they didn't let it get to them. They still helped me.
Well, we've been trying to help. That's one of the things we're doing. We're trying to help you while you're here. And you helping us with this film is really helping us a lot, too.
Right. You know, I just want everybody to know, you know, if I can get cured, anybody can get cured.
Steve, that was the first personality disorder that we got a chance to see interviewed. You did a great interview, but tell me, what is wrong with this man?
Well, John, this is the kind of patient that in the classic literature has carried a variety of different labels. The terms sociopath, sociopathic personality, psychopathic personality, immature personality, etc. Now we think of this as being antisocial personality disorder. And this man really exemplifies the classic, almost all the classic symptoms. Getting into fights, kind of disregarding authority, and being physically cruel to others, lying, stealing. After the age of 18, not kind of maintaining obligations, engaging in illegal activities and criminal activities. I think 2 points to point out here, or 3 points really, is what makes us think of personality disorder. In my mind, we really don't see psychotic symptoms to any significant degree to the picture here. We don't see symptoms of a mood disorder, depressive or manic symptoms, but there certainly is a lot of impairment in this guy's life in terms of his functioning. It plays out particularly in how he gets along with other people and with family members, with society.
Are there any other personality disorders that could look like this, do you think?
I think that that's a good point, that several of the other personality disorders in what DSM-IV calls the flamboyant cluster of personality disorders, borderline, histrionic, narcissistic, and antisocial is the other one. You frequently can see these kinds of dramatic, erratic, emotional behaviors that really can be quite detrimental to the person and to family members. What makes the antisocial personality disorder characteristic is these behaviors are really very much against the norm, the social norm. And there's really a kind of gross inconsideration of the rights and the feelings of other people.
And also, I think the complete lack of guilt. I think that's very different from, say, borderline personality disorder or histrionic personality disorder, that he experiences no guilt at all.
He seemed to willingly tell us some really outrageous stories of his past behavior, and we certainly might see this as his not feeling any guilt, but just to play the devil's advocate, I mean, to what extent do we think he might be lying to us? Or at least embellishing?
I think it's, if anything, it might be some embellishment, but in this circumstance, you know, he really doesn't have anything to gain by telling us that he's killed people, and that he would, you know, if someone walked in the door, he would, you know, throw a brick at them, which is very much consistent with his presentation. When I first interviewed him to do this film on the ward, another patient in the room was very agitated and had nothing to do with this man, and he came right up to him and almost got into a fight right there. So when he talks about having problems with impulse control, that is certainly not an exaggeration or an embellishment. Many people that have antisocial personality disorder, it's in some ways frightening for us to listen to some of the things they say and to want to think, well, maybe this is an exaggeration, it's embellishment. I would probably tend to believe that he's done most of what he said.
I believe that man. I believe everything he said. I believe everything he said he has done, plus what he didn't say.
Yeah,
Barbara, what kind of... it's probably a little unusual for a man like this to wind up on an inpatient psychiatric unit. What happens when you get a patient like this? What doesn't happen?
What doesn't happen is you don't let him take over the unit, because he's so cunning, he's so likable. Everybody will like him. He'll be controlling. They won't realize it, but here's old Joe over here. Joe's a good guy. Joe knows what's going on, and he does. He hears everything that's going on from the nursing staff. He will sit himself in a way so that he can observe and hear what's going on. He will know what's going on with all the other patients. He's a ruler. And he can be a bad ruler on your unit. He can be a holy terror if you allow him to be.
Well, I think that's the thing that's is somehow surprising about people that have these severe personality disorders, like the antisocial personality disorder. Initially, they can present very well in terms of not having what we usually think of as the more severe symptoms of mental illness, psychosis and delusions and depressive symptoms and manic behaviors, etc. And they can kind of tell a good story, you know, talk the good talk, walk the good walk. But behind that, there really is a kind of ruthless exploitiveness of others and a very strong impulsive streak that typically will come out in, you know, all of the behaviors that he describes.
Steve, this may be an unfair question or an impossible question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Why do we think this man has a psychological problem at all? Why isn't this just somebody who's deliberately hurting people, lying, stealing? Well, why do we see this as a disorder?
That's a very good question, John. And I think that at first blush, we might tend to think of this guy as just being a monster, that he's just kind of abusing people for his own end and breaking the law with impudence. What makes us think that this is something that we can try to help and that there's a disorder here is the fact that over time, and especially when we can contain someone like this typically in forensic or jail settings, we see lots of anxiety and lots of depression that come out and lots of dissatisfaction. With the case with George, who's been in the hospital approximately a month before the time of the interview, he says during the interview, while he's done these kind of antisocial aggressive acts, in some ways he's sorry for the things that he's done. He didn't mean to do it. He doesn't want people to not like him. What makes us think that this is more a disorder is that it runs in families, and you see characteristic patterns of typical early deprivation in the family. Many people with antisocial personality disorder have been physically or emotionally abused as children. So that gives us a sense of trying to help these people through their problems.
Steve, did you mean to say that he was guilty? Because I really wasn't struck by guilt at all that he had mentioned. He, in fact, talked about how he wouldn't rape women, yet in the next sentence he was talking about how he had smashed a woman's face in. And I think there might be some wish that he was a different person, but I don't think that he's actually guilty about any of the acts that he's committed.
Yeah, that's right, Yvette. I mean, I don't mean to imply, I don't really feel that, from doing the interview and sitting with him, I didn't really feel that he was remorseful at all about any of the things that he had done, or even felt guilty about any of the things that he's done. I mean, I think there's a sense that he would like to feel guilty and like to feel remorse, but generally it's very, very difficult to form a empathic connection with someone like this, because it's so difficult to get a sense of their humanity.
Well, I think he ended the interview with a really poignant statement where he seemed to give his sense of that difficult treatment road that confronted him.
But he implied that, or I thought he implied, if I can be cured, feeling like he had been cured, which I thought was puzzling, and I actually thought was disingenuous.
Oh, I didn't take it that way.
I mean, the day before that he said that statement, he had nearly punched out someone and had engaged in violent behaviors.
I thought his last comment was tragically ironic, because anybody watching that interview knows very well that he's not cured. Tim has alcohol dependence. He also has many of the characteristics of alcohol abuse. Taken together, these two disorders probably represent the most common mental disorder in the United States. Notice, too, that like so many of our other interviews, Tim tells us a story of depression.
For you, in a typical week, how much drinking would you do?
2.5 cases.
2.5 cases of beer?
Sure, yeah. Mostly beer.
Mostly beer. So hard liquor, other things like that, that's not something that you'd usually drink?
No. Not
Okay.
usually.
Has it happened that you've been in treatment programs for drinking too much in the past?
Sure.
Okay. How did that go? How did those programs work for you?
I don't think they do. I think that if you're going to quit, just go to AA or put on your own or move. All the treatment program does is get you away from your drinking buddies. So if you just, it's cheaper to move and go to AA.
Do you remember what was going on in your life back then that made you think you had a problem with drinking?
Court system.
The court system. Okay, you had some problems with the courts?
All the time.
What kinds of things were going on?
Get arrested for assaults, drunk in public, DUI, whatever.
So you've had some DWIs.
Sure, 2 of them.
Okay, 2 of them. And also doing a lot of drinking and then getting into fights?
That's right.
Okay. And what's some other problems you've had because of drinking?
Family problems.
Family problems?
Sure.
What kind of family problems?
Don't get along with anyone in my family.
Have you noticed that you've needed more and more alcohol to get high, to feel the same effect that you did before?
For a while, yeah, but now it's less. Takes less to, I think you go up and you come down.
Or a time when you were drinking the same amount, but it didn't seem to have the same effect? In other words, you couldn't get as drunk or as high as you did before?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It takes more and more and more. And then I guess after you get to the top of the hill, it takes less and less as you go down the other side.
Sometimes when people drink a lot and then they stop kind of abruptly, you have withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah, if you stop right, like if you drank a case and a half in one night, and the next day you didn't drink nothing, yeah, you'd feel it. It'd be a hangover that you'd feel.
When you've had a long night of drinking and you wake up in the morning and you have a really bad hangover, have you drunk in the morning to get over the hangover?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I always save 2 or 3. If I'm sick or real shaky, whatever you want to call it, I'll drink 2 or 3 of them, and then I'll go
2 or 3 beers?
Yeah, go lay back down for a while, then I'll get up and do what I got to do.
And this would be at 8 o'clock in the morning or 9? Or?
It could be 5 o'clock in the morning, it depends what time I woke up.
Did you feel nervous or get sick to your stomach or have shakes in your hands?
1 or 2 days.
For 1 or 2 days?
That's it. After that, then I'm back to normal.
How many times in your life have you had blackouts?
Probably about 40 or 50 times that I can remember. That, you know, somebody say something about it that I didn't remember.
Do you remember ever did anyone ever tell you that you tried to do something to hurt yourself or harm yourself during one of those blackout times?
No, I don't really. Well, I don't know. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. Tried to blow up a double tanker gasoline truck.
You tried to do what?
Blow up a double tank gasoline truck.
When you were during a blackout period?
Yeah.
How did you try to blow up the truck?
Well, the guy was putting the gas in the ground. I struck my lighter and stuck it on the hose. He took off running, and my friend ran across the street and threw me over his shoulder and took me back to the house. So I would say that's trying to hurt myself and somebody else also. Probably half the city, probably.
Has there been a time when you've noticed that you've spent a lot of your activities doing things around alcohol? You know, more and more time, let's say, drinking or thinking about drinking or thinking about ways to get money to buy alcohol?
Sure.
That's happened.
That happens a lot. Even now, you know, if I want to drink beer, I'd drink it wherever I am. You know, it doesn't matter. It's going to be there.
How about other things, relationships with people, friends or family members? Did you kind of, over time, cut those things out and put drinking in its place?
You don't go out. You don't go to movies. You don't, you know, whatever. Myself, I built an entertainment center in my home so that I could stay home and drink. You can't go to movies and drink. You can't smoke. You can't anything at the movies. So you just make it in your home. That's a good excuse anyways.
How about relationships with people?
Yeah, I've lost a lot of friends.
You've lost friends who drinking?
Sure. But yeah, you keep drinking. You know, it doesn't matter.
How have your relationships been with women?
Not too good. I don't know what it is. I guess they want things I don't want, and I want things they don't want. Because it takes 2 to tango, regardless.
What kind of problems have you had in your relationships with women?
I haven't really been having any serious relationships since my ex-girlfriend left me. And that was in '91. And I just...
It was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I've been pretty much to myself. I don't associate with hardly anybody anymore. I don't need it.
How about problems with jobs? Problems at work because of drinking?
I have a lot of problems keeping a job, but I don't think it's through drinking. And that's not it, because I show up on time and I'm there all the time. It's the people. I don't get along with the people.
The people there?
Yeah.
And has it happened that you've gone to work on time but drunk, or you'll take breaks from work to go drinking, come back to work?
No, I don't do that on a job.
Okay, so once you get to work, you won't drink after you get there?
That's right. And I don't like to drink before I get there.
Or before?
Right, I'll wait till I get home. That's your job. You have to keep that, or else you can't drink, right?
Has there been times when you still kept drinking, even though you felt that it was doing you harm in some way? Maybe your health, maybe relationships with people in your family?
Sure, you don't care when you're drinking, though. When I drink, it's like I don't care about anything as long as I'm drinking. Nothing bothers me. The world doesn't bother me. So when I'm not drinking, the problems come back. So you drink again, the problems will go away. But they keep coming back. The problems will always be there. You just don't realize it while you're drinking. So that's why I think people tend to drink a lot.
Have you had any physical problems because of alcohol?
No.
Problems with your liver, or?
No, I'm in good health.
If you did, do you think that you'd still keep drinking anyway?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I always drink beer. Always. I like it.
If you can just tell me a little bit about what happened for you to come into the hospital.
To come here? Kind of feeling homicidal and suicidal, I guess. And so I called somebody to talk to them on a crisis line. They couldn't give me answers on the phone, so they told me to come down and see somebody. I did, and now I'm here. I'm still here.
It sounds like you were really very upset.
Yeah.
You think about killing yourself and killing other people.
Yeah.
What was going on?
Just like the last straw that broke the camel's back, I guess. Just too much builds up on you. After a while, you can't take it. So, you know, I don't know. I was supposed to be on medication anyways and wasn't taking it, and I think that might have something to do with it.
It sounds like in the past you've had problems feeling depressed.
Yeah.
What's that been like for you?
Bad.
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 And that's happened just before you came here?
Yeah, well, yeah, I've been dealing with depression for, I think, all my life. But with the doctors since about the beginning of '91, I think.
When you look back on it, did that kind of start at the same time the drinking started, or did it start before or after?
I really couldn't tell you, because I've been, like I said, I've been drinking since I was 11. And I can't really remember too much before that. And so, I don't know. You know, maybe, I don't know. I guess I've felt down and out all my life. I can't really remember being an overjoyful child.
You know, depression's different for different people, how it hits them. How does it for you? How does it bother you when you start to feel depressed?
I think I got a word for it. I had to write it down because I didn't know it. Forlorn.
Forlorn?
Do you understand that?
Yeah. What is that word?
Unloved, unwanted, nobody cares. That's about it. It's a small word to describe all of that.
It describes a lot.
Yeah, it does. And that's about how I feel. I've never heard of the word until this morning, so, you know, I'm not college educated. And I think the alcohol had something to do with that, too. So.
No, but that's a very strong description that you give there. So you feel really kind of down on yourself, bad about yourself?
Sure. I mean, there ain't nothing I can do about it. I can't change my thoughts. Just try to get over it, I guess, or tough it out.
Steve, Tim has a serious problem with alcohol. Abuse, dependence, what's his problem?
I think it's really fair to say that Tim really presents a kind of a classic picture of someone with alcohol dependence. At one point in the interview, when I asked him about physical symptoms stopping after he stopped drinking, and he mentioned certain characteristic physiologic symptoms, the sweating and the trembling, this really points in the direction of meeting the DSM-IV criteria for withdrawal. Tolerance, he's mentioned at some point about kind of falling down the hill, needing less and less to kind of go down, and meaning that he needed to drink more and more to get the desired effect. And again, that's really, I think, what the DSM-IV embodies in its definition of tolerance. In addition to those two, we see a variety of other problems that are direct consequences of his drinking. Problems in his social relationships with women, problems at work, the need to spend more and more time, more and more amounts of his time engaged in activities related to drinking or trying to obtain money for drinking. He mentioned at some point about losing family and friends more and more as time goes on because of his desire to want to continue drinking, which again is very characteristic, very typical of what we see in people with alcohol dependence. He's a young man, so he doesn't have physical or other physical problems that are related to his drinking that would be exacerbated by continued drinking. As he said, he's very healthy. But Tim is quite clear in telling us that even if he did have problems, he would keep on drinking.
Yeah, he says he works to drink, and or you could say he lives to drink, and he seems to have no motivation at all to change. Even I interpreted what he said about going down the other side of the hill a little differently. It sounded to me like he may already have some liver damage, in that I thought he was implying that it now takes less alcohol for him to become intoxicated.
Tim denies and minimizes most of his symptoms and the consequences of his symptoms also. And it doesn't appear that he's very motivated to stop drinking or get into any treatment. He blows treatment off as just a way to get away from it for a little while, or to get away from his drinking buddies and then go right back into it. Do you think there's any chance that he called that hotline and got into the hospital for some kind of treatment of his depression only, hoping that would... That's just a speculation. I have no idea.
He cited the business that got him into the hospital, and he also talked about lighting some lighter in proximity to a huge tank of gasoline. And he seemed to make no connection between these obviously risky acts and the idea that he might be sad or depressed. He eloquently pulled that little scrap of paper out of his pocket, and somebody had given him this word with which to express something that a feeling that he endorsed, but he didn't have very many tools to express himself, alone.
What we see typically with Tim, that we also find very commonly in people with alcohol dependence, are the depressive symptoms. It's very common, very, very common, that people that have alcohol dependence also have many symptoms of depression and anxiety. He uses the word forlorn to kind of quite eloquently describe, how depressed he's felt. And I think it's difficult to get a sense of which has come first. If his heavy drinking has really preceded depression, or if depression has come first. And in fact, his drinking helps him, at least initially, to feel less depressed. On that point, I'd just like to comment, many people who drink heavily and meet the criteria for dependence will say, well, drinking helps me to feel less depressed. And while there's that initial sense of, sometimes an initial sense of euphoria from drinking, the long-term consequences of drinking really make depression much worse.
Barbara, you've had some of these patients on inpatient units. I mean, can we safely assume that if he's in the hospital, as he is, in the midst of this interview, that he's not going to be drinking alcohol?
No, you cannot say that. If this guy is truly an alcoholic, well, I can say we've had alcoholics who were inpatients, who had friends that were alcoholics, who would bring them drinks on the unit. And they would even call friends to bring them drinks. Maintenance came up to put in one of the lights. There was a wheelbarrow full of empty bottles. And we thought most of our alcoholics weren't drinking. We knew that some of them were, but there was a whole wheelbarrow that was full of empty bottles.
So these people will go to great lengths to continue to get alcohol no matter what their treatment setting is.
They will bring it in mouthwash bottles. They'll have their friends bring it in Coke bottles, just whatever it takes.
In Tim's case, it seemed as though he was primarily somebody who was a steady drinker. He continued to drink more or less on a constant basis with no binges. And I think that's one distinction we could make about the pattern of alcohol use that he has, that he is constantly keeping a supply in hand and constantly keeping the drinking going, whereas there are people who consume enormous quantities, but only in a cluster of drinking episodes, or even maybe one big binge followed by a long period of abstinence and then another binge.
In fact, he tells a story that would at least lead us to believe that he doesn't spend a lot of time drunk or grossly intoxicated, that he's drinking alcohol much of the time that he's, to others, appears to be acting reasonably normal.
And I think that, John, that's kind of contradicts our stereotype of people with alcohol dependence, of kind of being the stumbling down, publicly inebriated person. Again, you know, alcoholism does not discriminate in terms of sex or age or social class or ethnic group, and really anyone can suffer from alcoholism, and many people do quite well at hiding it.
Well, he specifically denied that alcohol would have any impact on his job performance. I always show up on time, I always stay there the whole time, I don't leave during the day to drink. It's just that I have problems with the people. So, you know, we would certainly guess that some of the problems that he has with the people has to do with some of the behavioral disturbances that he may be having the next day after a night of drinking. And he really doesn't see this at all.
And I think that's so common in, as we mentioned before, in people that have alcohol dependence, of just very limited awareness and insight into how problematic this drinking behavior is.
Susan suffers from anorexia nervosa. This serious disorder, although it can occur in both men and women, is far more common in women than men. In Susan's case, it has had a profound effect on her sense of self and on her relationships with other people. I understand that you have some difficulties eating and with your eating habits. Could you just describe them for us?
Yeah, basically I don't want to eat because it seems like as soon as I eat, I just gain weight, get fat, look bulgy to me anyway, so that only makes it worse. But then there's sometimes where, you know, I can't stop it, I have to, and then once I eat, regardless of the amount, there's a strong urge to either purge or take laxatives or something along those lines.
Is it a particular number of pounds that you're aware of? And you say that you're worried about your weight?
I guess you could say that. The only problem is that it never stops. You know, you start at a weight, it becomes very obsessive, where you're getting on the scale 10 times a day.
How much do you weigh?
Well, I weigh 96 pounds now.
Are you aware of, for your height and build, what your so-called ideal weight might be?
No, not really. There was a time where I thought that I had it under control, and I wasn't getting on the scale at all, and eating regular meals. And I know that at that point I was 118 pounds, and that's probably a good weight for me. I remember feeling okay there when I was there.
And do you notice that as you lose more weight, does your concern lessen about the weight, or does it grow larger?
It grows larger.
So the lower down you go in terms of your weight, your concern about it and the drive to lose even more actually increases.
Right.
Is that what I'm understanding?
That's right.
How is it that you come to gain weight from time to time?
Most of the time it has to do with some sort of social situation where I actually draw more attention to myself if I don't eat. Like a birthday weekend that I just had a couple of weekends ago. And I'm a chocolate freak, so that's what they do, you know, and you fix you your favorite foods, and they, you know, just give you all this stuff. And and then you almost have to eat it, because if you don't, you're drawing more attention to yourself. So it becomes out of control. It's almost like, since I can't monitor and not eat it, I eat it all. And then I have to take care of it somehow later.
When you gain weight like that, what feeling does that give you?
Frustrated, angry, feeling worthless. Yeah, I guess that comes from a lot of things. Number one, just because you're allowing, all of a sudden you realize that you gave control to someone else, you know, and you gave up control. You couldn't even monitor it.
I want to go back and ask again about another detail. You said that you have to get rid of weight when you gain it. How do you do that?
Usually I try and throw up, and sometimes I'm successful at that and I feel better and it's fine. Sometimes I can't throw it up for whatever reason, I don't know. So then it's, if I can, it can be exercise. Like on a weekend, if I don't have anything planned, I'll probably, you know, work out for 2 hours. But if it's like a work situation where I'm at work and we had a birthday party and I can't, you know, then it's a laxative.
You use the word obsession. Is that the sense of it that you have?
Yeah, I think that's very much it. It's so shallow. I guess that's so aggravating when you realize that, because you are going to gain a pound. If not today, it'll be tomorrow, and pretty soon you're going to get looking real fat again, and you're going to be worthless.
Even when you lose pounds, you still you feel like your body doesn't look right or feel right, or
real bulgy.
What is it that you notice, or how in what way does your body not feel right?
It feels fat, and when I look in the mirror, especially, you know, around the stomach and the hips and, you know, the back end and around up here, it just looks fat. It hangs almost like I'm pregnant.
What's the lowest weight you've ever gotten down to?
I got down to 87 pounds in the early 20s. That's when it was the worst. That was probably the worst bout of it that I had.
How about your periods? Are they regular, or is that does that stop when you lose weight? Do they stop?
Yeah, it has, and I'm real frustrated that it hasn't stopped this time yet, because that tells me that I need to lose more weight still, because there's some sort of connection there with, if you lose enough weight and have enough, that your body fat is so low you don't have a period. Well, if I'm still having a period, that means that I have enough body fat, obviously, so I still need to lose some.
Can you tell us how this all began and how it's waxed and waned over the years?
I guess there were periods of it, actually, when I was in grade school. And it seemed to kind of be triggered, like, you know, if you get a flu or whatever, and, you know, you can't keep food in your stomach for a couple of days, and then you get the comments of, oh, yeah, you lost weight. And so I would get into a cycle of some kind. I learned how to throw up. But it was never prolonged. I mean, I don't think it ever lasted even a year. I don't think I could, because, you know, you can't hide that kind of stuff when you're in grade school and still living with your family and parents and things. And then actually over the years it just got more pronounced. I think it got really bad when I finally went away to undergrad, because there was nobody watching me, and so I was free to be able just to continue it and continue it.
Do you notice any relationship between your mood, how you're feeling, and the weight that you are?
Yeah. I'm trying to, okay, well, I don't know if it doesn't make sense, you'll ask me about it, but it's kind of like, I noticed that I start to become real depressed, usually. Probably to a point where it becomes really clinically significant. And I naturally lose an appetite during that time. And then I notice that, you know, as I start losing more and more weight, that I start feeling better.
What was your mood like when you weighed 118 pounds?
You know, I was doing fine then. I think some of it had to do with just things that I had accomplished in my life, because at that point I did get the master's, which I thought I never would. I found a job, which I thought I never would. And so just being able to have that income coming in, and the fact that I knew I would now be financially independent and not depending on anybody, and I've made these accomplishments, I was just, I don't know, I was just gung-ho. It was like, okay, now let's get into this job. You're an important person now. It's just that it didn't last, I guess.
You talked about having mixed feelings, about having people pay attention to your eating problems, and about being in control of situations. And yet here we are, being videotaped. How do you feel about that?
There's a whole bunch of conflicting feelings. I think when it was first talked about, it was like, oh wow, you know, like, oh, I'm a celebrity of some kind. You know, I finally made an accomplishment. But I'm going to be real embarrassed to walk in there, because the first thing that they're going to see is, no, we didn't want binging problems. We wanted anorexic problems, and I'm not skinny enough to be an anorexic yet. So there was some real fears about that. And then there was also some, I don't know, I guess I allowed myself to feel good, because this is probably the first time that I've ever said, okay, yeah, you have an eating disorder. There's been some cycles to it. But before, in the past, I never even admitted it. It was like, you know, no. I know that, you know, I try to make myself throw up, but I'm not, you know, trying to kill myself or anything like that, which is probably what anorexics are doing, you know. So it's only this particular cycle that I finally accepted the fact that it's an eating disorder, you know, when you don't want to eat. And then when you do eat, you feel like you need to take care of it. That's an eating disorder, Susan. So there was some kind of, just kind of like a feeling good inside that I finally admitted that.
Being here is part of acknowledging.
I guess.
This is a very sad patient, I think, very sad interview. I felt sad at the end of it. She clearly has an eating disorder, and I think we need to talk about what kind. I would think that she meets criteria for anorexia, and the reason I think that is she has 4 characteristics that define this disorder. Right now her body weight is about 80% of her ideal body weight, if we take 118 pounds as her ideal body weight. And she's been well below that in the past. Secondly, she has a lot of fear about gaining weight at the present time, and I think would still like to lose more weight. Third, she clearly has a distorted sense of how she looks. She thinks she's very fat, even when she's thin. And fourth, she has amenorrhea, which is to say she isn't having periods. She isn't quite there yet, but she wants to get there. Sadly, I think tragically, she's determined to achieve that as a mark of success.
And she's been there in the past.
Mm-hmm. And
she says this is the mark of when she's in the ballpark.
That's when she thinks she's where she should be.
She feels as though maybe what we were really looking for was a real anorexic, and maybe she isn't even a good anorexic, meaning thin enough. Maybe she's only just somebody who purges. And so she's defining herself as a failure for not being sick enough.
The thing that struck me was when she said that when she gained 118 pounds and was feeling okay, and at that time also had a job and also achieved her master's degree, which she thought she never would accomplish. Why did she think she would never be able to live independently, to be able to have a paycheck? And why, you know, what is the connection between that and being so thin?
This is the kind of person that we just want to say to ourselves, you know, she's got to get better. She's so bright. She's so intelligent. She has seemingly so many things going for her, and she doesn't have the symptoms that in people with other mental disorders strike us as being so chronic and debilitating, like psychosis, for example. But with her presentation, there's almost a delusional-like quality to her obsession and desire with losing weight. And so I think for us, therapeutically, this is a very kind of difficult disorder to treat.
Frustrating.
Well, she's clearly not delusional. I mean, let's just say that again.
Yeah.
She's clearly not delusional. She's very articulate. She's even quite psychologically minded. She talks with a great deal of feeling and insight into some aspects of things. And I think
but a focal lack of insight about these issues surrounding her weight and weight loss pattern.
I mean, it didn't happen with her, but people with anorexia nervosa, you can stand them in front of a mirror and they can see bones protruding, and you can say to them, look how thin you are, and they'll say, well, I still need to lose weight. I'm fat.
What she was able to say out of the interview was that, in fact, she does stand a lot in front of the mirror with her clothes off and has a lot of hatred and loathing about what she sees. She thinks she sees a lot of fat. She doesn't show anybody else her body. No one sees it, certainly not in that situation. And you probably noticed she was wearing several layers of clothing, so it was very hard to tell exactly how bony or thin she might appear. I wonder if one of you would take a shot at trying to tell us whether she meets one of the subtypes in anorexia, that is the binge purge subtype or the restricting subtype.
Well, we did get in the interview that there were times when she would go ahead and eat the whole thing and not be able to stop herself. Now, we didn't exactly quantify that, but certainly that would make us very suspicious of a binge. And she clearly talked about purges using either laxatives or self-induced vomiting. So I think that we've met criteria for the binge purge subtype.
whereas in the restrictive subtype, she would simply stop eating and not use binging or purging to achieve the lower body weight.
So she would use just stopping eating and maybe exercise or something like that as a way of keeping her weight down.
I was struck also by the description of depression, but in my experience, one can treat depression in a patient with anorexia successfully, have the depression treated and not affect the anorexia at all. And I think several people have alluded to that, the anorexia can sometimes be alleviated, but is much more difficult to treat than the depression, which she does describe. In fact, what she describes is that when she lost weight from being depressed, she felt better, which is usually, I think, as people are experiencing a major depression, when they have lost a lot of weight, it goes along with times when they're feeling very depressed. That's a component portion of the depression itself. Whereas she has the opposite picture, that then feeds into her feeling about herself that she's now achieved something and she starts to feel better.
One thing that struck me about Susan is that she really kind of has many of the classic signs of anorexia that people have been talking about for many years. The sense of control, needing to be in control. And, you know, a very primary way to kind of exert that control is over intake of food. The laxative abuse, excessive exercise.
But I think it's interestingly been a very increasing disorder with a high increase in prevalence rates as society has become more obsessed with body image, with weight, and the number of anorexics has definitely increased in the last decade.
It's surprising because compared to the other disorders we've talked about, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, that just kind of immediately strike you as a severe, debilitating condition. Here's someone who is very articulate, and there seems to be so much hope and promise that she'll kind of be able to get over it. Unfortunately for many, they really don't.
Yeah, I think we should say that it's a disorder which, at the extreme, can be very severe with death as a consequence. That people do get into severe metabolic imbalance and not infrequently die.
What we've tried to do in showing you these interviews and these discussions has been to illustrate the most characteristic symptoms that patients have who have these 10 different mental disorders. In addition, in each case, the disorder that they have has to be differentiated from something else. We've tried to talk about what we call the differential diagnosis. That is the difference between one illness and another. When a particular illness or disorder has subtypes within it, we've tried to discuss what subtype the patient has. Then we've tried to expand that discussion, talk about the impact of the patient's symptoms on their behavior, but individually, and in the setting in which they are right now. They might have been inpatients or they might have been outpatients. In addition, we've tried to talk about the impact of that behavior, those symptoms, on their family, their friends, their ability to work, and sometimes we've tried to even expand to talk about the impact of an illness on the community. Special populations are at increased risk. We've tried to discuss that when it's appropriate. Diagnosis is an evolving effort. The diagnoses that we have today are ways of grouping and understanding the characteristic symptoms that you've seen. In 5 years or 10 years, the symptoms will probably be the same, but our understanding of how to group them may be very different. Keep that in mind. Finally, and most importantly, we want you to remember that these were real people who have told us about their symptoms in their own words. And we've tried to discuss their problems in the context of their lives.